5:30 p.m. and I will call to order the special meeting and workshop of the MISD Board of Trustees on today, March 5th, 2019. Agenda item number 1 is discussion and possible approval of utilities and site improvements for the Young Women's Leadership Academy.
Yes, sir, and I'm going to bring up our team. Will be David, who's going to speak to that particular piece.
What this action item details is to provide, for a contractor to provide the basic utilities. It would consist of electrical, sewer, utilities, and also some other miscellaneous site improvements that would be concrete, sidewalks. So those are the items that this action item details.
And that's so that we can get the modular units in and get things started. So we're trying to jump on a lot of these things prior to. So we can get that up for our Young Women's campus. Questions?
How many of those are we talking about?
Of the modular units? Well, there'll be 10 classrooms, or 10 classrooms is what we're establishing. The number of units would be...
There's, time you wrap everything, it's less than 12,000 square feet. So we're looking at to about 14 units. And those units, part of that consists of the multi-purpose or the cafeteria, which we located just adjacent to the classrooms.
As well as a restroom.
Restrooms.
One of the units comes operational with the restroom already built inside of the unit. You just tap it into your utilities.
So how long does it take to set these up?
I'm told that it'll take them 2 months. They'll get started this week or early next week, and they should wrap it up by the end of April. Now that will be setting up the buildings. We will continue to work to get all the utilities to work in conjunction and afterwards. So then about my plan is, if schedules are following, I'll have furniture being delivered to those units June 1st.
So I guess my other question, I guess moving forward, for whatever facilities we may have in the future going with these, so are these buildings where we're leasing? And so what's the future plan as we grow?
So these are being leased under a leases transformation budget. And so if we decide that in 3 years, what we want to look like in regards to that footprint, depending upon what may occur if we move forward in a November option for a bond, that could change all those dynamics to let it be an incubation until something is available for that group to move in. We could either return those back. We could look to purchase at the end of that lease and make a decision if we want to keep that as an incubation site that you could move individuals into while something is getting updated and renovated, if you needed that space, if we needed that space. But after, or it could move even longer term, meaning we continue to lease, or we decide to buy after that 3-year option if we don't have something that we're moving the young ladies into, we can continue to outfit it that way.
I guess the next question after that, because the following year we're going to need to add more buildings because you're going to be moving another group of ladies in, is that because you're going to be moving another,
well,
you're
right
moving
now,
to 8th grade?
Correct. It's 100 per grade level at 10 classrooms at 22 through 27. We built it so that we could add, so that we could add on to what that facility looks like based on space and based on the applications that are coming in. So if you look at 100 per grade level, it's high, but looking at a design of about 500 to 700, what that could look like. And so, based on where they're positioned at Jones, they would go down, and then you have room that leads next side to it, that we're beginning to build out as well, that we can continue to go down. But it would be additional add-ons, you're right. We're not adding the whole facility right now. We're staging that as kids are coming on board as well. But we have it staged, so they're like Lego pieces, in essence, conceptually. So they would just click and add on as we go, based on the number of rooms that we need.
So at some point in time, does this money, the monies that we're saying it comes out of Elisa's budget, does this at one point in time start coming out of our fund balance?
When that grant runs out, yes. Unless we decide to continue redesign if any style under that grant, which I'm not sure what we might fall under, but it would. The grant's not designed to sustain it for longevity, just for startup. And then we would have to, at that point in time, take on the cost to add, lease, whatever it might be for that facility.
So one of the questions I have is, since we're starting to deal off, and we just wanted to go as wonderful as possible. So some of the construction has been done on some of the elementaries that have received a lot of portables in the past. I know it's getting in the weeds a little bit, but I want this thing to look as sharp as possible. But
Right.
I've seen that the electrical gets kind of strung out in the back or on the side, and it looks a little, generally some of the bigger facilities have the on-ground
Right.
transformer. It's all run underground.
That's correct.
We don't have overhead stuff.
That's correct. What we're planning on doing is, we're gonna be pulling utilities, Encore will, from the south end of that existing parking lot.
Okay,
Will go underneath that parking lot. I want it to look clean. So they'll go underneath, they'll bore underneath that drive. They'll go to a location where the transformer will be set, and that transformer will be caged in, so it'll be secure. Then from there, all the feeder lines will go to each individual unit within the inside of, it won't be visible from the outer part, but through the inside. And we'll have panels, we'll have to have electrical panels, but it'll be done clean and aesthetically as good as we can make it.
okay, great.
And the same thing about the modular units, it's all hallway space, so kids are going out a door, outside, up into another portable. They're all conjoined, so you don't have, it helps no look as well. So
Right.
aesthetics around what we want to do on the utility side, what we want to do on the facility, for the community and the campus. So if we were to grow itself out, let's say, like Mr. Bishop was discussing, we get out to multiple years, and there's not a location for those young ladies to move into, we would have to definitely consider at that point in time, 3 years' time, if we don't have a space for them to move to, they need a permanent location, and that may be it. Continue to add to it based on our M&O, if we take INS or fund balance to develop what that would look like.
Okay. Are we gonna be able to supply just at least a small sign, like just to kind of make it look like?
We plan on having a small sign,
That says,
floor level. We're planning on a marquee if we can, if the city will allow us
Right.
to have a second marquee on site, and that's it.
One of the things that goes with Mr. Bishop's questions about how much you want to do, if it does eventually go into another location, and what can actually move from that location and go.
Right.
And since it's going on that one street side, we determined we need something that signs that it is our young women's location. How big or how small, floor level or marquee. I would say those are still popped in for discussion. Yeah, but we know we need something to identify it, but we don't want to make too much of a permanent something that we
No.
invest in and we can't pull and go with.
Right. Well, great.
We're designing as a temporary location.
Right,
And over the
right.
years, do they get to go into a fixed facility? If not, then we have to come back and make that become our permanent location.
I'd make the motion we approve for school grant services to move forward for the necessary utilities per the submitted detailed scope of work.
Motion by Mr. Trischetti.
I second.
Second by Mr. Marquez. Any further questions? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Mr. Kennedy is called in sick, so he's feeling ill, so we wish him the best. All right, agenda item number 2, discussion and possible approval to construct a citywide fiber network. Mr. Holly?
Good evening. The subject of this second agenda item is discussion and possible approval, he said, to construct a citywide fiber network. Just to give you a little brief background and history, we have bid out this kind of project before a year ago. We decided not to go forward at the time based on the bids received and the possible funding available. We were approached by the county back in August that we had a mutual interest in building a fiber network for mutual benefit, the same type of fiber network. They asked the history of what we have bid out before and the rate process and so on that we've been through. And at that time, we decided to get together, form what we call the Midland Fiber Consortium, and write some specs through a consultant to build a fiber network throughout Midland, which would encompass and capture and provide all the routes to connect all of the Midland ISD facilities, as well as certain key Midland County facilities. And based on that, we said that we'd go through the E-rate process. That bid was actually submitted through E-rate in December. And once we're through with that process, we would see how the bids came back. We were told that there was a possibility that Midland County would be able to actually fund the construction of this network, including.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Hawley.
Did
we ever get the AG ruling on that with the county?
We don't personally have that AG ruling, but the county does have the AG's ruling that on the fiber optic is still a county commissioner's meeting decision.
Okay.
We do have the AG opinion on the original $5 million on safety and grounds, and that piece has gone through the AG. The county has made a decision on that, and that funding will come forward. On the fiber optic funding, we want to be prepared for when the county commissioners do meet on Monday.
That's all you lack is county
Yes,
approval now that the
that
AG has said yes.
approval is there, because there is an AG opinion that approval is there, and then we can then come forward. So our meeting is ahead of theirs, but we want to be prepared that we do this because it's over spring break. They can then wrap up their meeting, and then we can then move forward, as opposed to do theirs, and we're over spring break waiting. I don't know if I missed anything in there.
And it's a timing issue as far as what we need to do. And I met with the county attorney this morning, both Tom and I did, and had a great discussion with him. And the very good news is we should get the $5 million check very quickly. Is what it sounds like. We wrote some things. They needed some stuff from us, and we've given that to them. And they do have an AG opinion that dealt with that, and so they're ready to write that check. On this, and I'll let Tom again talk about kind of the dynamics of it as far as our position and what Mr. Malm told me today. And apparently, I don't know who was privy to conversations with the county judge, and I'm not sure anybody was. But what they thought, his initial belief is that $1.5 million or whatever that other part of that grant was going to be for was just for the libraries. And so, and that's what the AG opinion basically tells us we can use it for 3 different things: security, safety, libraries, and the grounds, which clearly the $5 million, we can cover that and have a good faith argument as far as that's concerned. My deal with him today was we can make a good faith argument that this infrastructure that this is going to create will do a tremendous thing. We can kind of push it towards our libraries. We can push it for safety and security, our officers and stuff as far as communication concerned, video, everything that we do around surrounding communications and security is going to be greatly upgraded because of this money, because of this fiber optic cable that they're going to put in there. But not only us are we going to benefit from it, but Midland County is going to benefit from it. The city of Midland is going to benefit from it. You know, when they open up the hole, they put all that fiber in there. They're not just gonna put Midland ISD fiber cable in there, they're gonna put everybody in there and then sell it. And so that's gonna be a tremendous asset for the county and for the city as well as Midland ISD. What he needs is, and you want to talk about that now, or as
No.
far as what we need?
Yeah.
What he needs from us is somebody to come to the Commissioners Court meeting Monday morning and basically say, here's the purpose that we're going to use that money for. And here's how it's going to impact our libraries. Here's how it's going to impact our security, which are the two things that grant will allow under the AG's opinion to do it. Obviously, the AG opinion is not binding, but it is very, it's a good piece of advice as far as this stuff is concerned, and they're relying on it. And so I think we have a good faith basis to do that.
If I only knew someone that had to attend every commissioner's court.
Yeah.
Well, I know.
We didn't know if you made them mad or not. so we
Right,
weren't sure
right,
you were
we
the great
decided.
spoken.
If you give me the language, I don't mind doing it. I mean, I am there, but if Mr. Davis wants to come, I'd be glad to defer.
I wasn't gonna volunteer, I thought Mr. Powell would be able to ably represent us.
Well,
You would, but-
I'm gonna be in Italy visiting my daughter.
Oh.
So she's studying abroad over there. And so, or I would be happy to do it. And we'll give the language, we'll do the prep and everything else. I don't think it's gonna be a technical deal. I just think we need to be able to show that we have a good faith basis. Here's where this money's going, and here's what we need to use it for.
If the board
and
doesn't
things
care,
like
I mean,
that.
I am there,
I
Mr.
would,
Davis.
happy to defer to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Just send me the
Assuming that
language.
we pass this here, we're getting a little
Yeah,
ahead of
yes,
ourselves.
sir, no, yes.
And I didn't want to go that much into the detail, but that's the purpose of, we have to conditionally approve it tonight, and obviously it's dependent upon getting approval for that money from the Commissioners Court. If they don't do it, it's a no-go. And so, but we have to have certain things, and Tom can talk about these, we have to have certain things in place before the 15th of March. And so, obviously, because spring break's falling in here, we're gonna have to, we need to have this resolved by that. And Mr. Mom seems to think that's not gonna be a problem. And the benefit of this is we can save the school district, thousands and thousands of dollars each month if we can get this project going. And so it's definitely a worthwhile project if we can get Commissioner Court to agree with us.
And we initially did thank you, trustees Biscotti. We didn't want to put you in a position, I didn't realize you were attending every meeting.
Oh,
You have to
yeah.
leave and attend on behalf of MISD.
No, I'm there, I don't mind doing it.
Okay, appreciate that.
You don't feel that the look of you working for the county and then turn around and walking up, talking
I
for
think
the
we
district
beat
would
that horse to
be?
death during the election. I bet if the board wants someone else, that's fine by me.
No, I'm
That would
comfortable
be-
with it.
Do you have an MISD hat on? I mean, a hat that we can give you, do
I
you have to
certainly
wear it
put
when you
one on,
talk or
yeah,
anything?
Clock out.
And now, you know what, I'll just read Mr. Powell's language. I'll just be the spokesperson. How about
All
that?
right. Well then, so if I understand, there's not a draft motion here, but it appears to say that you're asking this board to approve that, that MISD will proceed with contracting with the vendors recommended in Mr. Holly's memo contingent on the receipt of a funding commitment from Midland County.
Correct. Yes, sir. That's exactly what we're doing.
So, once you build a system, right, you got a great system, you got plenty of flow in it. Is there anything that holds us back from, the district possibly in the future? Is there anything that's gonna hold us back in the future saying, hey, listen, some other entity that wants to work within the MISD and we provide space on that network, to generate cash flow for the district?
That's a possibility. Once we have all the bandwidth and capacity, there's all kinds of things that are possible. If we wanted to share some of that capacity with somebody else, that's technically doable. With possible changes of equipment, reconfiguration.
But we're not gonna be constrained to anything because of the grant
Um,
or because we're running it in the same system or in the same hole as
Right.
another entity?
I think the county might have some shared conversation in that. If we were to decide that we want to sell some of this off, or that spacing usage, I think that would be, you know, just maybe a side conversation. I don't think they have an authority once they give to us that it belongs to us, but I think that's probably maybe not what it was intended for. That we
No,
want to,
but-
you know, build up, that we have an opportunity to put some space, and we want to either lease that space out or sell it off. I think could be another conversation, but I think as technology is moving and pushing, and what we have for kids that are bringing in, we want to do more video. We're asking kids to produce more and look for more.
Right.
I think that's going to be taking up a lot of our capacity. We want to redesign our libraries to leave the style of where libraries are now, and maybe what we went through when we were in school, to be more of an information center that is 21st century.
Amen.
That really drives it in a very, you know, tactile way. That's a different setting than what we have, and it needs a different resource to be able to push those kind of interactive opportunities. So I couldn't tell you what that looks like.
Well, the reason I bring that up is if we're doing business with somebody and we're providing something that's way more advanced than anybody else, you know, and their product is coming to our district, you know, they should be able to recognize that, hey, you're gonna look great in MISD because we got a great system. Now they need to bring your price down or we'll rent you space to bring in services here, but, you know, so there's some opportunity in the future for negotiation and on a better price or whatever,
Right.
but, so.
And I think as those opportunities come forward, we'll bring that to the trustees and let everybody know, is this something that we see that we want to utilize around that and be informed, keep the county informed, I believe, around that. But as those emerge, you know, we'll come back to the table and say this is something that, or update the board, this is something that we want to be able to advance ourselves around. Couldn't tell you what that looks like, but these are the best technical people that manage that for us and keep us informed on, we're not using it all, and we have someone who would love some of that. We could think about what that looks like. It won't be something we don't consider.
And it's also true that the other aspect, if we get the county's approval to fund these monies, that the resulting monthly net savings to MISD the savings will go from, or the amount, monthly amount will go from approximately 33,000 down to approximately 21,000 a month. So it'll be a savings of 12, right?
That's correct. That change wouldn't take effect. This construction is expected to last about 15 months, and for E-rate schedules and timelines, basically by June of 2020, the dark fiber network, which has been constructed for us, needs to be lit by equipment which we would have installed by our second vendor here in the recommendation. And there are certain timelines and milestones for E-rate, but the plan is for that to be complete from July 1st of 2020. And from that budget cycle, the monthly recurring cost would drop because we wouldn't have to go ahead and lease the current service that we have with AT&T, which is exactly $32,969 a month. That would drop down to the monthly recurrent cost that we're being quoted in this proposal and this lease. Then that would drop down to $20,625 which would be our share. There's an additional small portion that the county would bear because there's the 3 sites.
In a much better product.
Yes. And just a great deal of flexibility and capacity that we didn't have before. We would have the in-house ability to change and to upgrade in the future without going out to bid again and changing any kind of contract with a vendor like AT&T. We just have to replace or reconfigure some hardware at that point. If we decided we're at some sort of bottleneck point, then we still have lots of room to grow with this existing fiber that would be constructed.
So was all that to caution me to say, look, you're not going to realize a 12,000 a month savings immediately, but you will starting on July 1,
From July
2020, if the construction proceeds with the county's money.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
Will we be passing both motions as one? Are we accepting, you said a second?
Right. We went through the process with the IT the department of Midland County and our IT department and others here in Midland ISD, to score the proposals. The reason there are 4 score sheets is because we went through it very systematically, all the variables. We actually, we actually requested a range of services. So we had to rule out the first couple of services, then we moved on and on. And the reason I have a handout is actually we made a small change in the scoring of the last score sheet attached, so that what you have in your hands should substitute what was submitted to the board a few days ago. And just a minor scoring change on the last page, no changes of the results from that. But so we did, the committee went with one provider for the construction and one provider for the hardware. And that combination is what we're proposing, what we're recommending for that grand total that you have there on the table, $5,172,870. We are expecting a 60% E-rate discount from that. So the net would actually be, and if it goes as it might next week with Commissioner's Court, as was said, that would be borne by Midland County. The net would be $2,069,148 for all the upfront construction. Then on July 1st, 2020, once all the construction is completed, that becomes a monthly recurring cost from that point on for the 5-year term of the lease.
But are you seeking a single motion authorizing MISD that if we get funding commitment from Midland County to authorize MISD to contract with the vendors that you recommended based on the scoring sheets that you provided to us?
Yes, sir.
And that's one motion.
Yes.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Murray, second by Mr. Bishop.
Bill, I've got another question, Bill.
Go ahead.
So once, where the fiber is run, so where all the fiber is run, so who's the owning entity for the actual space for the fiber line? Are we gonna be in a group of 3, county, city, and?
No, we will not own this. This is a long-term lease, so the company that's constructing it will stay the owner of the lease. But the proposal is, sign a contract for a 5-year lease, which is renewable at that point. So we can certainly extend it, we probably will. But the best value, the best combination of what was proposed to us was the 5-year, and that was part of the scoring process. So they retain it. We're under contract with them. There's actually what the monthly recurring cost is. If somebody cuts the fiber, then they're responsible. That's the ongoing maintenance as well as some other costs that they build in over that 5 years. So there's an upfront cost, and then there's a monthly recurring cost once all the construction is completed, fiber is lit, and it's all working. And as we said, that monthly recurring, our share of it is substantially less than we would have paid if we continued with the kind of arrangement that we have now, where we just lease out the entire service. And it's brought to us by a telecom company like AT&T. And then the real reason that we want to do this, there is some savings. You can say there's an ROI, but not really if the county is paying for the upfront. But it just gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility and capacity going forward, knowing our needs for all that is growing like this, with the transformation of schools, one-to-one libraries, and so on and so forth.
So once again, so we don't have a holdback with the service company or the leasing company versus what we're going to do with our system.
What do you mean by holdback?
They don't care what we use the fiber for.
They don't care. They've got nothing to do with.
All they care about is the physical aspect of the fiber.
Yeah.
And if it gets broken, they go fix it.
Mm-hmm.
But all of the fiber, all of the light that goes through the fiber, whatever we use it for, is our business.
Okay.
All right, any other questions on this action item for which we have a motion and second pending?
The map up on the screen of this is from the vendor, this is the actual route it would take, and it captures all of the sites and 3 sites from the county, all of the campuses, all of the administrative sites for Midland ISD, And the two libraries from the county, their network operations center, they're not in their headquarters. They're all, the dots in the map, I apologize, it's a little blurry.
I would ask, that wasn't in the packet, can the board get a copy of that map?
Absolutely, I'll send it.
So, out of curiosity, we do decide to add another site, or a couple of sites. So what would that look like with this company? Because is it?
There's language in their proposed contract that the additional sites can be added. That'll be a separate addendum, I guess, to the contract, but under terms, I'm sure we can go ahead and add to that. And that'll be an additional cost for construction. I think that's something that the county will do on their own, but this proposal, we structured it to include just the sites which are E-rate eligible, which is only the libraries, and all of our sites, of course, qualify under the E-rate. Just keep it clean and separate. That's the way we did it, and there is language that they can add additional sites, so we could also add if that became appropriate.
Just got to add a library to it.
According to this, it's got to be built through the library.
If the county is gonna pay for extra sites, then yes.
Or
In
what
the
we deem
future,
to be that kind of space, maybe not titled library, but it's deemed that space for our learning center.
and in the future, say the Young Women's Academy would decide to move it somewhere else, we can go back and pay them to run fiber, and it doesn't matter library or not. The only reason the library matters is because the county's paying for it.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous, thank you. And Mr. Trischetti, thanks for presenting this. Please express our extreme gratitude.
Yes, sir.
To the county if they so approve this. We hope they will. It's
For you, Jets.
tremendous help. All right, then 6:02 p.m., I think that concludes our special meeting. Now I will call to order the workshop, which will provide an update on the improvement required campuses.
Good evening, Board President Davis, Board of Trustees, Mr. Ridge. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to present our academic report. This report that we're giving you this afternoon is specific to our 4 improvement required campuses: Lamar, Travis, Scarborough, and Houston. The data that's being used for tonight's presentation is specific to a 9-week district checkpoints, our 18-week district checkpoint, and our 2018 STAR from this past year. Tonight's presentation will be conducted by the campus principals, and you should have a copy at your seats for reference, just in case you need to make some notes from the discussion. The principals that are presenting tonight will concentrate on supports that they have in place at their campuses that might vary from campus to campus. I'm sure will be unique to their needs. And they will also share with you some of the instructional adjustments that they're making at their campuses based on the data that they're getting either day-to-day or from CFA's Common Formative Assessments, and also from the district checkpoints that are existing. First up, we have Lamar.
One question.
Yes.
Or a couple questions. I understand that the 4 featured elementary schools are there as a result of their status last year. My first question is, are we, I'm hopeful that we are evaluating 9-week checkpoints, 18-week checkpoints, and 2018 STAR results by comparison for every elementary campus and secondary campus, right?
Yes, sir.
And with that evaluation, are there any campuses that, you know, you are worried that will become IR based on those preliminary but not yet final indicators?
Right, last year we shared a document that showed spectrums for schools, where we felt like this school is clearly, going to clear. This one, we feel confident this one we're not as confident, and these we know are not gonna make. We released that, I think, after March, maybe going into April.
So we are wrapping up our window. It closes this Friday for our star release assessment, which is our 27th-week checkpoint. That wraps up this Friday. So for the end of this month, we will be producing a forecasting report. To the
Similar
board.
to last year?
Correct.
Giving you all the campuses and where they are and kind of our predictions
Okay.
on where they will fall. But this particular report is specific to the IR campuses. We want to give you an update on where they are mid-year, what adjustments are they making based on student data that they're getting to continue to improve student outcomes.
Okay.
We have 4 campuses again. First campus we have is Lamar, and I wanted to share with you, Lamar is in their fourth year as an IR campus. Travis is in their 4th year. Houston is in their 3rd year, and Scarborough's in their 1st year of receiving the IR service.
And all of that is current through last school year, obviously, because we
Based
don't
on-
know what this year,
Correct.
this
Based-
school
yes.
year holds.
Based on last year's results, they are labeled IR for this year,
Year.
but we have an assessment at the end of this year that will move us forward.
And so last year was Lamar's 4th year, Travis's 4th year.
Correct,
Got
if
it.
yes.
Okay.
Correct, so the concern is that when year 5 hits,
Yes, sir.
House Bill 1842 comes into play.
Yeah.
And so what are actions we need to be ready for in the event of that? So we're being pretty proactive. We started that with Sam Houston. And you'll hear, those actions tonight, what that looks like. But those are the 2 campuses that we've got to get out ahead of, knowing that they went to year 4. And in this year, what are indicators telling us as we're going into this year about what their 5th year could look like?
So tonight you will get to meet the principals and hear from them on the instructional processes they have in place and the systems and structures to ensure ongoing improvements are being made. We also have the executive directors here for support and additional questions if needed that are here with us tonight. Lamar falls under Diane Lopez, our executive director. Travis falls under Alicia Severson, our executive director, and Sam Houston and Scarborough falls under Lisa Neighbors, who's out sick today. First campus we have up will be Amy Clark, principal at Lamar.
Good evening, President Davis, trustees, and Superintendent. I'm Amy Clark. I'm the principal at Lamar. I'm excited to be here tonight. Thank you for having me. I would love to share some real exciting things that are going on at our campus. And so I'm going to share a slide that shows the supports that we're receiving at Lamar for either the district or things that we've done as a campus. I'm going to give you a minute to look over those. I think you have it in your packet. And then I'm going to focus on 3 of those more in depth about what those look like and how they're impacting Lamar. All right. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Is it open discussion during the workshop sessions?
Rather than get through a slide, and if you have a question on the slide, absolutely.
I have a question on this slide.
Okay.
So, in Partners in Education, you had Mission Agape listed. Wonderful organization, but
Absolutely.
better known as a food pantry, maybe not a
Yes.
traditional education partner. Can you speak to Mission Agape's role at Lamar?
Yes, they have been one of our partners in education since I've been there. They come to my partner education meetings. They've helped our kids. They help with our Friday food program. They work in conjunction with First Baptist, and they support our kids with our Friday
That's what we
food
met at lunch
program.
today, the Bacchus lady
Correct.
was, yeah.
Correct.
And they're huge supporters of our teachers. They buy them lunch. They bring them treats to kind of keep the morale up. So they've been with me since the beginning, and they're very dear to me. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to go over the three areas that I feel like are having a huge impact on our campus. I'm going to begin with our PLC. We were an original cohort, first cohort school, so we're in 4th year. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to click. Okay, so I'm going to talk about professional learning communities. We were original cohort 1 school, so we've been implementing it for quite some time. We meet weekly, our teachers meet weekly for collaboration, and we focus our PLCs around the essential questions. I know that you're familiar with that. We focus on what we want our students to learn. We spend a lot of time on essential standards, breaking those down into learning targets for students. We focus on how we will know if our students have learned it. We give common assessments. And then what we do if they have not learned it, we use that data to create interventions. We're very strategic in our interventions. We know exactly what students need to master to be successful. And then we're working on, if the students have mastered it, what do we want to do to support them in enrichment? Also, another thing that's been really effective this year is we're working with the New Teacher Project, which is TNTP. And it's a consulting firm that builds teacher capacity, leadership capacity. And the partnership came out of the transformation grant that we received from TA. They worked with me last year to create a plan specifically designed for the needs at Lamar. And so this year they have been working weekly with my 3 through 6 reading teachers to support literacy development capacity. We focus on lesson planning, rigorous text, and they do support us weekly in that. They've also helped the leadership, training the leadership team in giving effective feedback to teachers to build their capacity. One thing that's a celebration is TNTP does a survey, a climate survey, twice a year. We had one in the spring of 18, and we had one in the fall, and Lamar showed significant improvement in all areas. They assess things like leadership, learning environment, student expectations, and in all of those areas we're above the national average on the survey. And in 2 of the areas we're in the top quartile. So that was a huge celebration. One thing that's a really celebration too, the work is going so well at Lamar that their implementation, they feel like it's effective and they're seeing so much growth that I've been honored. They asked me to co-present with them at TASA and TASB in September to share what's going on at Lamar. So we're super excited about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then my last one I'm going to talk about is Capturing Kids' Hearts, near and dear to my heart. It is a school-wide program that focuses on building relationships with students, building relationships with each other as a staff, and it has drastically changed Lamar in a positive way. We have less discipline referrals. It's impacted teacher retention. We don't have anyone on the transfer list this year. They're staying at Lamar. And they've already told us we have done such a good job of implementing Capturing Kids' Hearts that once we get out of our IR this year, that they're going to nominate us for a national showcase school. So next fall, we will be nominated. So super exciting. So I'm going to go on and share our data.
And where does the program come, Capturing Kids' Hearts again?
Capturing Kids' Hearts comes from the Flippin Group. It's based out of College Station. And Capturing Kids' Hearts has been around for years. And it's their program they've created, and it's based on relationships. Holding kids accountable to a social contract. This is how we agree to treat each other. The campus has a social contract. The teachers agree to treat each other. One other thing I forgot to tell you, they're also have approached us about being a pilot for a leadership curriculum for students. And we would be the pilot, and then they want to do it nationwide. So they asked us to do it next year at Lamar. So super exciting about that. They're actually writing the curriculum. So at this time.
Great.
All right, so I'm gonna share our data with you. I think there's a lot of celebrations here. The last year spring STAR results, this was where we ended in May last year. So we had 61% of our kids at approaches, 26% at meets, and 10% at masters. And so at our 18-week checkpoint, we were significantly above where we ended last year.
Forgive my ignorance, where's the threshold for IR?
programs is passing.
Okay,
Right,
what does that
right.
number
If you
need
want
to
to
be?
know what that number is that you need to be at.
So what
all
they
three.
do in order to determine if a campus is IR, they assess 3 different domains. So it varies and depending on which domain we're talking about, but the majority of the domains look at the percent at approaches, the percent at meets, and the percent at masters, and they take an average of those 3, and then they have cut scores to determine whether that's going to be an A, that's going to be a B, a C, and a D.
And so there are 3 domains, and you have to meet 1 or domain 1 or domain 2 and 3 in order to reach that.
Okay, so you gotta hit 3 no matter what, and then you gotta hit 1 or 2 additionally. But you're telling me the number fluctuates, Lamar's number is different than Carver's number?
Depends
for
on
do-
your economically disadvantaged population.
For
For
domain
that school, not the district.
For domain 1, everybody's graded the same.
That's,
So-
can you, gonna have to educate them, what is the practice mean? That's, what is the mean? Is that like passing standard?
Okay, so domain 1 is student achievement, and approaches is the minimal that a student has to make to pass. We shoot for the meets level performance. That's more of an 80s range type of performance, and then masters is the highest level that students can attain. And so for domain 1, they take the average of those 3 and get that average, and then there's a scale calculator where they scale it to determine if it falls within an A, B, C, or D.
And that scale is based upon free and reduced lunch, economic disadvantage.
Those factors get weighed into your domain factors, as well as if you're economically disadvantaged, if you're special ed, if you're your ethnicity. But they look at that in regards to economically disadvantaged as a factor that gets weighed into the scaling of your score, knowing that if you have more economically disadvantaged kids, it's harder.
Yeah.
So versus a Carver that does, their numbers are maybe 10%.
Sure.
So that factor gets weighed in, but we probably have to do a one-on-one just with the board again, maybe a sit down, so that we can show you how those scores are built out. It's probably a longer conversation than we have tonight.
Understood.
So
My
what-
Cliff Notes question would be for
Yes.
each campus, and each campus will get access this evening. What is the gap from where you were last year to IR to where you need to be to not be IR? If it was, what's that?
So
What's
they're
the gap?
They're focusing on growth is their
So-
biggest element, and so share what that means, your approach to attacking the IR status and how you feel confident or not in regards to where the campus is on achieving that.
Okay, so I'm going to give you kind of the cliff notes of, because every domain is different. Domain 1 is everybody's rated the same, okay? So, for example, in order to get a D, which is considered met standard, in domain 1, your average has to be a 35. So you take that 71, the 34, and the 15, and you average them together, and if that's at least a 35, that's met
You're
standard
fine.
for domain 1, okay? Domain 2 splits into 2 parts. Domain 2 is student progress. So domain 2 has a part A and it has a part B. Part A is looking at kid by kid. This is not looking at kid by kid. However, at the campus level, we have broken it down kid by kid to make sure that kids are making progress, because domain 2 part A will look at that. Domain 2 part B is what you see in a regression analysis. So for domain 2 part B, they take that same average that we just talked about, but in domain 2 part B, everybody has a different target, because in domain 2 part B, they are looking to see your percent economically disadvantaged. So a 35 may not necessarily equal a D for every campus in domain 2 part B. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So then they take the best of domain 2. So they look at your score for part A and part B. The one you get the best score on, that becomes your domain 2 score. And they compare it to domain 1. And I tell my principals, they take the winner of that, and that becomes 70% of your overall score. The other 30% comes from domain 3, which is where they take the subgroups. And now they're looking at all of the different subgroups. That one's very complex.
Sure.
And that becomes 30%.
Hey, none of it sound simple.
It's not.
It's another metric that needs to
Well,
be
John-
simplified.
Well, John, and I'm sure they can provide you the PDF that explains that
Yes.
for the state, I mean, so you can, do the reading up on it.
At the end of the day, my question is, how far was Lamar's gap from being IR to not IR?
At the end of the day, looking at all of that I just explained for Lamar, Lamar is on track to getting out of IR at the end of the day. When you look at the student by student progress, which is not showing up there, when you look at where their averages are falling in that part B on the regression chart, when you take the average of this, they are on track to get out of IR as far as every indicator that we have pulled.
One way to put it is that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is that this chart only addresses domain 1 student achievement. And utilizing the numbers from last year, Lamar was 32.3, shy of the 35 threshold on that domain. Utilizing the 18-week checkpoint, they're at 40, above the 35
Correct.
threshold.
Yes.
Okay. And hopefully, domain 3 is satisfactory, and domain 2 is even better than domain 1. Domain 2 hopefully may be the winner.
And quite honestly, we think it will be the winner, part A, because just looking at the student by student progress, it's very, very promising. So that will probably be our winner.
Okay.
All right, so again, we are above currently where we ended last year. So that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
On one of your slides, you indicated that part of your success has been a result of the district support from the bilingual department. Would you elaborate on what constitutes that support now?
Yes.
As compared to prior?
Yes. Prior to this year, TELPAS was not counted in the accountability system, and last year and this year it will be. And so we moved all of our 5th grade students into ESL out of the bilingual program, and I have Mr. Castilla coming every day to work with my bilingual students and the ESL students daily in math and reading, tutoring.
Who is he?
He is a tutor with the bilingual department. He works with newcomers a lot, but the district has allowed him to come to Lamar every day and work with our students.
And additionally, Mrs. Amaya has funded and sent us the bilingual teachers from Lamar that are working with the students to receive specific training and supports to ensure that they're meeting the needs of our English learners as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question.
Oh, sure.
The new teacher project, the 10 TP. So last year, I was trying to recall which school, and it might have been Travis or there was one school that they gave me an example of after they did their survey and interviewed everybody that they were like, okay, there was like one thing with math that they narrowed down and focused on. So what was the one thing here, the reading part?
Yes, they sat down with me last year and helped me create a plan based on Lamar's needs. And Lamar's need was really reading, and so they created a staff development plan for reading.
Okay.
And it's really been phenomenal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you very much.
The next campus, specific to Travis.
Good evening, President Davis,
Howdy.
Board of Trustees, and of course Superintendent Rick. I want to thank you all for giving me an opportunity to come in and talk to you about Travis. We have a lot of incredible things going on, and I can't wait to share them with you. We'll start with our comprehensive supports. They're very similar to those that you already saw with Lamar. I'll be happy to talk about them, but I'd really love to dig into our 3 cornerstones and talk to you about the great work that's going on. Okay. So, as I was asked to put together my 3 cornerstones this evening, I visited with Ms. Severson, and I want to begin with just an underlying understanding that the professional learning communities is a tremendous vehicle that we use at Travis all day, every day to get us where we're going. So you'll notice that professional learning communities are not necessarily a bullet on our slide, But please know that that is the vehicle we use in and out every day to ensure that these things are happening. The first bullet that we chose as a true cornerstone is our work with TNTP, and you heard briefly from Ms. Clark about the work that TNTP is doing at Lamar, but at Travis what we did is then we customized our support from them, and it really revolves around a cycle, because as we developed our cycle, that's how we have been able to demonstrate significant growth. So we began with what do we want students to learn, and what does it truly look like when students achieve that learning? And so really creating what we call exemplar lessons. This is in the end what it's going to look like when Terry understands this concept. And so we work with that. And so teachers truly understand how to measure student growth and if they're truly progressing. And then really looking at, we spend a lot of time looking at data on multiple choice type tests, but really understanding what is the piece that Terry doesn't understand when she chose C instead of B, which is the correct answer. So truly analyzing student work and the thinking that's processes that are going into the answers that they're choosing is critical and gives us much more information. So really bringing in student work samples, analyzing those. And then planning for, based on now what I know about Terry and what she didn't understand, I can fill those gaps. Or I know that Terry completely understands this, I can enrich and push Terry to that meets and master's level rather than focusing on the gaps for the whole class and forgetting that Terry's already mastered it. The second big bullet that we wanted to discuss tonight is goal setting. We have historically in education as adults set goals for children. At Travis this year, we have moved the ownership of those goal setting to children. And so every student setting folder that we use the state's accountability process to determine the student's goal, but share that with the children. So now the children have the opportunity to track their goal, fill in their bar graphs, celebrate their success. Perfect example. I have two 5th grade students, Philip and Phoenix. And Philip has been working all year long, and he is so motivated. Friendly competition, we'll call it. And so they compete on every assessment. Right now, Philip is very upset because Philip did a bubble on answer choice on his answer document, and so he scored 1 point lower than Phoenix. And they are fighting over it every day in a very friendly way, but they're arguing over it. Lo and behold, Mariah, who has never been on these boys' radar, has now made a perfect score on the last test and outscored both boys. And so the race is on. And the children are tracking that. So I tell you that story, not just because it's cute, but because it truly demonstrates student ownership in their own learning and growth and a desire to make growth that's the transfer of the ownership is moved from adults to children. So that's a huge part of what we're doing this year. And then consistently having this conversation with kids. I know what Philip's score was because I talked to Philip about it, as do my counselors and teachers. And so it's a big part of what we're doing. And then really using the data from both the work samples and the multiple choice assessments to strategically identify those standards that are underlying conceptual standards that support everything we're going to be learning in the future. So we have identified in every grade level, every content area, 4 standards that are the underlying foundational standards that we go back and reteach and hit constantly, as well as continuing to address new standards. Really narrowing our, what we call relentless focus. You may as well tattoo it on my forehead. We have a relentless focus. And we're only focusing on those things that are going to help our students achieve their own growth goals. So the kids will ask, how did I do on 5.3K? Because they know what the standard is. 5.2B is place value. They can tell you how they did on it. And they can show it to you in their notebook. I'm going to go ahead and slip to the next slide.
If you'll go back one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Would you explain your parenthetical in the last line? What does that mean?
Get more questions.
Oh, yes, I was going to do that. Do you mind if I flip to the next slide so I can show it to you?
Oh, it's in there. Okay, fine.
Okay. So I planted you in the audience, President Davis, I really did. Because when I originally looked at this data, my heart sank. I was sad. Because when you look at the numbers 45, 15, and 3, that's terrible. Let's just be honest. It's terrible. But what we've discovered is we're going to use this 70 as a passing standard, right? We have a significant number of students who have been way below low performing, right? And so we are bubbling, and we're setting goals, and we're going, and we're going, and we're going, and we're right here. So we have a significant number of students that, let's use this as an example, okay? I have 10 kids in my class. All 10 of my kids made a 68 on the test, and a 70 is a standard. So on this data, it would look like I had no one passing. However, if I get one more question right on my test, now I go from a 0% of my students passing to 100%. And that's where we're sitting at Travis. We are this magic boiling pot of water that my grandmother would say will never boil if I stare at it. But it's bubbling, it's heating up, it is right there on the surface, and the minute we break that threshold, it's gonna boil over all over the stove. Well, that's where we're at, and here's why. If we can gain from we got a test in January, a release 2017 test. As we looked at the 2017 release data for our students, if we gained 8 more questions, and remember, that was the middle of the year, we hadn't taught all the content yet. 8 more questions for those friends in our classes. We now go, for example, in 6th grade math, from 20% of our kids passing to 27%, to 90% of our kids have now bubbled up, and we are boiling all over the place. So that's where that 8 question mentality came in. If we can gain those 8 questions for every student, and those students are tracking those 8 questions and they know which ones they want to get and what skills they want to do, then we're going to go from an IR campus to I will tell you with every ounce of my being, I believe that Travis will no longer be an IR campus by focusing on 8 questions and the right stuff.
Ladies, could you explain why we're focusing on 8 questions as opposed to 4 or 10 or 15?
I would absolutely be happy to do that, because what we did is we looked at, if we moved all students in January, 8 questions, and we picked 8 questions because that was our biggest impact, and it's very doable, because if we take 4 standards, remember I told you we had those 4 underlying standards, each one of those standards is tested twice on the assessment, on the STAR test.
At least twice.
At least, a minimum of 2. That's 8 questions alone. So if we can ensure our kids master that, then that's 8 questions. But we also looked at our assessment if they only gained 3 questions. We looked at every kid. 3 questions, it didn't get us where we wanted to be, it didn't get us out of IR. If we gain 6 questions for our kids, from January until May, or in April, for the case of 5th grade, if we gain those 6 questions, we squeak out, but we don't want to squeak out. We want to boil over. We want to be messing with stuff for kids. Okay, so that's why we chose 8 questions. We also know that there are some students that are sitting here in this meets and masters range that they probably already know those things. Those are those conceptual foundational skills that are going to make everything else boil. So we have a group of teachers, and I want to thank Mr. Fong from Bush. And we have some teachers from Bush even that are coming over each afternoon after school and tutoring some of our kids that are here, that are almost there, while our staff continues to focus on getting those foundational skills firmly implanted in the minds of our little friends, so that as we're adding new content, we're building, and it feathers out, because these things support all the rest. So that's why we chose 8 questions. Did that answer your question?
Yes, and here's my next
Awesome.
question. That sounds fantastic.
It is fantastic.
Let me ask you this, will, in your 8 question explanation, does that mean if you get 8 more questions right per student on average, I guess, that you will meet the domain 1 threshold? Or,
Okay, so
or does it mean that you need 8 questions more, or 6 questions more, an additional 6 questions more to satisfy the growth component of domain 2 to get off of IR?
So if we hit the 8 questions, absolutely, without a doubt, I will, you can do whatever you need to me. We will get out of domain in domain 2. We have been banking from day 1 on domain 2. Because growth is where, when your discrepancy is from here to here, growth is where we're going to get. I'm going to tell you, I'm so excited. I wasn't going to say this tonight, so I'm so sorry, sir. But if we get 8 questions, we will get domain 1 as well.
And we've been looking at the calculations.
I mean, it is so close.
Just because I wanted a prediction, so I could feel comfortable saying that this is Travis's year to get out of IR.
It is.
And in having that conversation, Mr. Jones and I went and met with the Travis staff, but we prefaced the whole session that night on Domain 1 has never been on our radar for Travis because the gap is just so large. And when we showed what the percentages would change to if we can grab those 8 questions, being very strategic about which standards we choose to give us those 8 questions, Domain 1 came on our radar, and it was a very exciting celebration because we didn't think that was quite
I will throw a party. And I will host a party because it will happen. But you also have to remember that we're focusing on every child. So if every child grows 8, that means that this number goes up exponentially because we have so many of them that are sitting at the top of this one and at the low end of this, and you get 8 questions and you now have met the master's level. It's
It
amazing.
probably doesn't matter to a whole lot of people, but at your particular campus, how much parent involvement do you have?
Minimal. We have parents who are absolutely involved all the time. We have parents who are involved occasionally, and then we have some that we have not managed to reach out and tap, quite frankly. And we are working diligently on that. It has improved over the last year and a half that I've been there, but it is by no stretch of the imagination where I would like for it to be. So we will continue. I will say that with the help of my partner in education and Diamondback and enticing parents to come with food and incentives and the things that they're providing for us, it has definitely increased, especially in the areas of family nights, meet the teacher night, math night, literacy night. But when I think of parent engagement, I think of parents having the knowledge to help their children at home as well as coming into my school. It's not just about, did they show up for meet the teacher night? Because I can tell you I had an hour-long line at the food trucks after meet the teacher night. But when I'm looking for parent involvement, I'm looking for those parents who consistently are able to take their knowledge and support children at home and then help us at the school as well. So it's definitely better.
Have you seen that increase compared to before?
It has increased, but it's been a minimal increase in terms of the ultimate goal for parent engagement. It has increased exponentially getting parents to family events in the evening because we're providing them incentives and food and no uniform days and dress code passes and all those things. So that number has increased significantly.
So
And I can get the number for you, but
extend the opportunity, meaning we want to invite you in, we can get them in. It's when there's not an extension like that, so large event, math night, you want your parents there, you want them to learn,
I can get them in.
they'll come in. It's between that event and the next event that you need all that engagement around what's happening academically with my child, I'm reading with my child, I'm continuing the numeracy with my child, I understand where my child is in deficits and I'm applying that in. Couldn't say all that's in, but I don't think there's a visual at the school that's saying that's all being applicable. When they have their next event, they get them all in. So now it's about how do you, between events, make that connection in between happen, so your events are compiling upon each other, and you've got that bridge, that gap between those two.
Yeah, but on the same pretense, if the kids we have at particular campuses, if their parents don't have the educational background to be supportive of those kids, then you're not gonna have that support at home because they really don't know how to give that support as far as helping.
No, without a doubt, that's an accurate statement. So for the math night, science night, reading night, those nights are designed to help a parent come learn what that is in order to be in order for you to be able to provide that guidance of information. But sometimes it's just not knowing. I get you may not know the 4th, 5th, or 6th grade math. Sometimes it's about being able to articulate and see visually where you see gaps and then know how to access them. Because if you can get a parent who may not be able to articulate it or may have an educational background that may not demonstrate the mastery piece, you can see that there's a struggle based on what's getting represented in data, that you can go access what those resources are like at campus. And I think that's a piece that has to build in a connection as well.
I think it's a bonus when parents are able to support in that way academically, when they are able to help the student with their math assignment at home.
No doubt.
But when I hear support, I hear support, like the parent is supportive of education in the home, and I'm gonna make sure that my child, I know now that they have access to iStation from home. I'm going to make sure that they log in and spend 30 minutes a night on those resources, because now I know, because I've interacted with the school, that my child has access to these things. Those are the types of supports I look for from a parent.
And we have had those opportunities.
Sounds like two things.
Okay?
Two things are, one, you're increasing opportunities for parental engagement and opportunities for parental support, however you define it, and that's on one parallel track. The other parallel track is adopting a no excuses philosophy about we're going to educate every child, be where they are, be whatever parental support they have at home, we're going to coach them up, teach them up.
Right.
And so we began the year and talking a lot about the no excuses mentality. And so we've even dialed that in a little bit, President Davis. We have actually started calling it a relentless focus. Every child will grow. Every child will grow. And so as we come back to that focus over and over again, it's happening, and I'm so excited.
Great.
You know, something was said here at the board meeting the other day, that we don't work on hope, and.
Hope is not a strategy.
Hope is not a strategy.
Hope is not a strategy.
Over there.
I love that.
But actually, we don't talk about it either.
It should
Put
be
that on
a,
a t-shirt.
it should be a coin phrase, because, you know, the strategy you're talking about, you know, the questions you're talking about and the strategy you're talking about, you know, that's the kind of stuff that to me is gonna get us through, because, you know, as the people have been here longer, you know, and the people have been at it longer than I have, know that waiting on that parent engagement part is, especially in this town, the way we're working people, you know, because I work people 15 hours a day. So those people don't have the opportunity, because I work 6-7 days a week. Those people don't have the opportunity to come home and to be with that child. So hope the hope part.
Marquez is the call. Education's
Hey,
decline. We gotta.
We can just get rid of
Put it at the altar. Put it at his feet.
If you want to drive a car, we go out and get the next gas to get it moving.
So in
Not 14
conclusion,
hours.
I believe, and I know belief is probably not a strategy either, so we'll throw that out there, but I truly believe
better
with
than
every
hope.
ounce of my being, it is, I believe with every ounce of my being, this is Travis's year and we will be out. And the data supports that. If you look past the simple overall, and remember our pot on the stove boiling, it's coming. It is coming, and it's right there, and if you'll just look away for just a second and you'll see it. It's going to be incredible.
It was really exciting to see the number of students. We're tracking growth as well, because Domain 2, that's where we're putting all the money is on Domain 2. So we're tracking that progress to show that students are making that progress. We've got a large number of students at Travis that are right up against the threshold. They have not made that shift over the threshold. So I feel very confident that Domain 2, we are going to get out at Travis. But if we can get that group that's right up against that threshold over in our approaches, meets, and masters, Domain 1, I think, is a possibility. But Domain 2.
But Domain 2, my God.
Okay.
I'm here. I'm there. We got this.
I'm sorry, we're not ever going to look away, but we hope it.
No, I don't want you to. No. I can be patient. It'll just take us a couple more minutes. I don't want you to look away. I just want you to wait. Just wait. Don't look away. Thank you.
It should not.
Thank you very much.
It should not be that, though. I mean, we can agree on that. It should be able to be put on one page in 12-point font, not.
What? I have a little cheat sheet
Oh, yeah.
that's like for people to understand. Right.
That one.
Right.
I can start these with
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
that's okay, thank you.
I think.
Is it okay I start?
Yes, ma'am, go.
Thank you so much. Good evening, School Board President Mr. Davis and Board of Trustees and Superintendent Riddick. I am thrilled to be here this evening to share the great work happening at Sam Collegiate this school year. I recently served at Bush Elementary, and this is my first year at Sam Houston Collegiate Prep, so it has been very exciting. And I've been with the district for a total of 3 years. The data we're collecting is showing positive trends in our student achievement, and I'm excited to share with you 3 of the big impacts that we're doing. Before I do that, I'm going to share with you our comprehensive campus support. Some similar items that you've seen on the past 2 IR campuses. Something that we will be highlighting this evening is our Avid platform. That has been a huge success at Sam Collegiate and has really moved us forward. So if you'll take a second. The first area I'd like to share with you is our professional learning communities. As a new campus, we knew that we had to build collaboration on our culture on our campus, not only for our scholars, but for our professors. We were coming from all over the district and really need to find that unified learning of togetherness so that we could display that out to our scholars in a very rigorous way. So implementation on our campus is a sacred time that's built into our master schedule for professors to collaborate each week. Throughout this time, we've also identified the critical standards that each scholar should be mastering, and also planning those high rigorous lessons that are being delivered into the classroom. So PLC has been imperative for us. We've also just partnered with Ms. Diane Kerr with PLC, who's come in and helped us out quite a bit this year in getting our campus up on the right foot with that learning. We also have our Avid program. Through the innovation of our campus, we have been given the opportunity to work with that platform. Avid stands for Academic via Individual Determination. And that's exactly what it is. It's individual determination, and it goes hand in hand with our collegiate prep. We really ask our scholars and our families to rise to the occasion of taking ownership of our own learning, being responsible of our own materials, and taking responsibility of our actions. So it's really moved Sam Collegiate not only academically, but behaviorally also, which is, it's been really great for us. Avid uses an acronym called WICR, and it emphasizes on writing, inquiring, collaboration, organization, and reading to think. A great piece that Sam has propelled with is 2-column notes, and they're going around just for your viewing. It's really allowed our scholars the transition of just learning, trying to retain an output, to the idea of thinking to learn. So as I'm learning from a professor, as I'm learning from a peer, I'm able to take those notes and able to reference those notes time and time again as I'm showing what I've learned. So it's been really great. We do that pre-K all the way to 5th. They look differently in each grade level, but it's been a huge impact as far as what our students are learning and getting them to talk about their learning, getting them to express what's going on in their mind so that each professor can meet them where they are individually. Another great thing that's happening at Sam Collegiate is our campus-wide intervention process. We knew we were getting scholars from all over the district, and we knew that we had to create something that met their needs, and it was imperative that we did that from day one. So within our master's schedule, we incorporated a power zone or an intervention time in each grade level that professors share scholars among the grade levels so they can meet their needs individually. It's been a great thing to see and experience as our scholars are not only having one teacher, even in a self-contained classroom, they might have multiple teachers for intervention based on what their needs. So it's been awesome to be a part of. Another great thing is our goal setting and progress measuring. Every single one of our scholars has a data folder or data binder. Not only does it have their goal, their level up goal, so that domain 2 goal for our 3rd through 5th graders, it also has their actions for success that they've committed to, and it also has their progress measure. So every single data point that we've collected, they're aware of where they're performing. And that's also campus-wide. It looks different in my kindergarten class than it does in my 5th grade class, but all of our scholars have that. We've also maximized our 3rd through 5th grade pull-out intervention. We've utilized the strengths of our specials teachers and our 1st and 2nd grade professors to come in and do some pull-out with our 3rd through 5th grade, and that's been impactful on our scores also. So any questions before I go to data? Okay. So here's our 9-week and 18-week checkpoint along with our star at the end of the year last year. Currently, as far as domain 1 goes, just to pony on the conversation that was happening before, end of last year, Sam Houston was at a 31. And at the 18 checkpoint, Sam Collegiate's at a 32. And remember that magic number is 35 if we're talking overarching just domain 1. So our data is indicating those positive trends, and we're very excited to continue those trends and move our scholars forward.
Is there any, so we don't have the 6th grade, is that essay, right?
Yes, sir.
So by moving those students, how did that affect, how's that gonna affect the numbers, obviously from one year to the next? Because you don't got a grade level now in there. So how does that, I mean, does it actually hold you back, or does it help you out in?
It impacts the denominator as far as the number of tests scored and given, but it doesn't impact the overall percentage. Your denominator would just change. So your percentage is still apples to apples, it's just changing your denominator.
Is your campus eligible for a domain 2 grade? Because you had some changes in your student population, but you're still eligible for domain 2 growth?
Yes, because students come in with a prior assessment score.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
It follows the student.
Right.
So at
Since
Sam
it's 6th
Clee-
grade,
Okay.
everything below that would have
It's not
progress.
just campus.
Right.
So at Sam Collegiate, it would just be 4th and 5th grade that are eligible for that domain 2 progress measure. Whereas in other traditional campuses in Midland ISD have the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade.
Remember, 3rd grade does not have a prior star assessment.
Because they didn't start.
Right.
Well, back on the last, on Travis, are you more focused on thinking that you will achieve success on domain 2 growth or domain 1 growth?
Absolutely. Domain 2. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
That's the money domain.
The percentage is also, it weighs more in the accountability.
Okay.
Progress in itself in domain 3 is half of the domain 3 score. You know, we didn't talk about the domain 3 thoroughly earlier, but.
Yeah,
it's-
I'm already.
How does,
You kind of doubled up on the
how does,
Make it rain.
So,
Yeah.
how does you get it in 2 areas, and you have more room to grow in that particular area. So it allows you to build great achievement around that, and you know where to focus your efforts for the, well, here 4th and 5th. So then you know where to really, push in really hard in order to lift those aspects. Similar to South game plan.
Okay.
Which South ended up meaning that domain 1, like Travis is hoping, you know, that they will, not hoping, believing that they will achieve. So that became 70% of South's overall score was that progress, because that was the winner.
Okay.
So what I heard from the first 2 was that we were betting that those 2 campuses are gonna be off of IR. We do a lot of data digging. Do we feel that way about Sam Collegiate?
Yes, sir.
A lot of our leading indicators, this is just one glimpse of, we're not giving you like all the data points that we're looking at in regards to that. That's what they're doing, and that's what principals are doing simultaneously with teachers. A lot of our data indicators are showing that progress looks to be made. We'll still monitor that on, because we know that we still have couple of months of instruction to deliver before our first kids start to launch into that testing mode. And we'll know as we get closer, based on our STAR pieces, where we need to meet that achievement in other areas. So now it's circling back to that, but leading indicators show promise.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
You go ahead, I'm about to soapbox, I'm not asking questions.
Okay. So do you in your assessment of the preparatory elementary, I mean I'm excited about the environment that it brings, I mean, but how do you feel that, I mean, I know it's fresh, new, but how do you feel for next year? I mean, how does that, I know we're talking about this, getting over the hump here with this deal, but how do you feel for next year? Do you think that growth will continue to support and move forward and become stronger through the environment that's been created?
Absolutely. Year 2 is going to be amazing for Sam Collegiate. Not that year 1 isn't. Year 1 is great. But year 2 is going to be absolutely amazing because that culture is being set this year, that work is being put in.
Right.
Next year, it's just going to propel us so
Right.
much further. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Is this a part of your handout?
Yes, sir. That's just an example of 2-column notes that we've implemented campus-wide through the Avid platform. So I just wanted to see, when you say 2-column notes, some people are asking, well, what does that mean? So I just wanted to be able to show an example of scholars thinking on paper while they're learning.
The
What grade
note-taking
is this?
process I'm familiar with, but what I'm concerned about is in the far left-hand corner, a column, numerous misspelled words. How do you all address that? I see that spelling and literacy goes right along with the math.
Yeah, absolutely. Spell check these days with electronics, it's difficult to do spell check on paper and be able to address that. Our teachers address spelling when they're doing formal writing. It is definitely not something that's being addressed through their individual note-taking, as long as they can understand what that word is and what they're trying to get across with their learning.
That's where I differ. They should understand it in that instance.
Yes, sir.
That's old school, but old school still works.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What grade level was that?
That was 4th and 5th grade. Yes, one was 4th and one was 5th. I brought a younger grade example. The quality wasn't very good, so I opted not to share it. The quality of the copy.
print.
Sorry.
Not
the quality
Not
of
the
the
content. No, I got it.
No, sir. It was the quality of the printer. Any further questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate everything you guys do.
Appreciate what y'all do. And please communicate that, principals, to your staff. We appreciate what they're doing. You know, it is, and y'all too, the deep dive on the work. Because listen, unfortunately, it's just a shame that you get labeled IR and there's so much more going on to a campus than that.
Right.
Should not be, students should not be measured.
So
That's the whole teach to the test problem. When I hear you talking about you're dialing down to the 8 questions that you know those students need to, we've gotten it backwards, y'all. I mean, there's something wrong with the system at that point. If we're dialing down to the point where we're gonna get those tests so we can be sure and hit the benchmark, so we can, there's gotta be more going on in this
So
picture
part
than
of it
that.
is, we've got to get through the sugar to get to the protein, so that we can really build the sustainability. We've got to clear some thresholds for that to happen, so you got to do it quickly.
Right.
And we know how we have to build it out long-term. Once we get out, how do we build out now that aspect? I do grow concerned about heavy test prep, because that doesn't meet the threshold of long-term. There are some that have to get to that point in order to clear themselves. So
When you don't have that pressure weighing on you of IR, you can do so much more.
You get a little, yes. Ask schools that are ready to go to autonomy.
Yeah.
Yes, you get the freedom to really explore and push kids' thinking and learning. Right now, we got to hone in on spelling, got to hone in on a lot of different aspects and dive deeply in the data. The only way, not the only way, one of the ways that we gather our data is through formative assessment, so that we can check your polls to see where you're at, so we can know what remedy to provide to you. I get concerned about, but you'll hear that as part of our remedy, we have to, do this triage so we can get rid of the label, so we can get to the next point.
Yeah.
As an example, sometimes you get a little fearful that if you don't go down that pathway, well, you actually have enough data and information to ensure that you're hitting that mark. So one of the things that we did, we reduced the amount of tests kids were taking so that we can begin to get some instruction in between. So we went from 6 weeks to 9 weeks. We have a benchmark that's delivered at outside the district level that gives us a star-like environment, so that you can get a good, better grasp that hones in to let us know what we've taught, what you know, what we haven't taught, and do you know some things, or we know we need to go after. And based on that information, we can build a measured plan of attack.
That was just the system for you.
And there's been some extra days added in the year where the teachers get more planning time.
Yes.
Right.
And from my take of it, the problem doesn't exist. The teachers doesn't have to go 3 months and then try to intervene. They got those days set so they can enter in, the intervention can come quicker. So, I know the extra days were set aside for some of that stuff.
Absolutely.
So-
We definitely, what got us from 11 to 9 to 4, and then 4 again because the accountability system changed, was making sure we put emphasis on tier 1 instruction, our instructional process. And you need those additional days to make sure you can bring team members together, let's say at the 3rd grade, so we can collaborate about the instructional process. What assessments do we want to assess? What standards do we want to assess? What interventions do we want to put in place? What enrichments do we want to establish? And what's the assessment going to look like, the CFA that we're going to give weekly, on a weekly basis for students. So it's all about the instructional process that we have to keep revisiting and keep improving upon.
Sorry.
Okay, good evening, Mr. President, Mr. Davis, how are you, and school board members, and Mr. Riddick. I am Deanna Flotter. I am a first-year principal this year, and I am lucky enough to be at Scarborough Elementary School. I'm very happy to be here. So I have some information to share with you. Just to begin, this is again some of the comprehensive campus supports that are currently happening at our campus. I'll give you just a second to read those, and then I'll click to the next slide and focus on three key ones that we're going to discuss further.
How many retired teacher tutors do you have?
I'm sorry?
How many retired teacher tutors?
Currently just one. And she's specifically pulling math, specifically 4th, 3rd, and 6th grade for support.
You could be the second one, Jane.
What'd you say?
You could be the second one.
That's right.
So moving
They may
forward.
not keep me long, but
Again,
based on my
corporal
approach.
punishment.
I think you have an old
Yeah.
So these are 3 areas that I feel are really driving our campus in the positive direction this year. I'm going to go ahead and start with the professional learning communities. With that, that's we've known as PLCs. The teams meet to have focused and intentional conversations regarding student learning during this time. Within our professional learning communities, teachers focus on intentional data tracking by analyzing the students' assessments that they've taken during the day. Previous year's STAR scores are also utilized to come up with a goal for each student. You heard a little bit already about data level up, and that's how we take previous school year data from the 18 STAR scores, and we're also focusing on the growth piece. So we're looking at how can we get those students to grow to that next level, okay? So that's how they come up with the each student goals. Students also have their own data tracking as well. You've already heard that discussed as well. I feel being the last, I feel some of this might be repetitive, so I apologize. But it's good information, and it's truly driving our campus forward. So I think it's important to continue to say again. So with that data tracking, the students have conversations in the classroom with the teachers. They have actual data days where they meet with their teachers and they discuss their goals and how they're performing along with those goals. We also, just to touch a little bit on the parent involvement, we had an event at our campus called Topsy Turvy Tuesday at the beginning of the school year to help promote. It's a lot about that conversations with the parents and making sure they're able to understand what we're really doing at the school. So on that night, these students came dressed as parents came dressed as students, and the students actually sat down with their data folders and had the conversation with their parents about their data. In a sense, they also had examples on their desk of the work and what all they've been working on, their math journals, all kinds of different pieces. And they shared that, in a sense, teaching their parents like they were the adult. So it was a very fun event. We had a great turnout. The parents were very excited to be there. So the process of professional learning communities has helped teachers see at a glance how students are performing and what type of academic support each student needs to keep them on track to meet their specific goal.
Essential standards always drive our instructional focus throughout our professional learning communities. We have continued contracting support from Solution Tree, and they help support us with the PLC process, and they continue to support with those 4 guided questions.
What year of PLC is Scarborough in?
Actually, I'm going to tell you that we're year 1. The reason being that unfortunately Scarborough has had different turnover of administration over the past few years. I don't know how many years exactly, but they haven't had any consistent support. So my vision going forward with Scarborough is to become a PLC model campus. I truly believe that if you look at that data and you truly analyze that data, it's going to take you to the right place. And that's what we have to look at, and that's what we have to drive with.
Oh, great
So,
to hear that.
so I feel like 1 is the right answer to tell you that this is the first year, because we are starting from scratch.
Okay.
So, okay. The second area that we're focusing on is campus intervention supports. We've implemented WIN time, which stands for what I need. So this is time that's valuable, and it's set aside to provide support for each student and what they specifically need. The grade levels share students so they can better meet all the needs of the students, and they focus on those needs in small group. So we talk about that tier 1 instruction, and that tier 1 instruction has to be powerful. But we also find that sometimes whole group tier 1 instruction is difficult, and not all students learn in that capacity with a whole group. So some students do perform better when you pull them back in a small group with you, and it's that more one-on-one interaction that you can give them at that time. Common formative assessments are also utilized at the end of this WIN time to ensure mastery of all the essential standards. Common formative assessments ask students questions at a high depth of rigor, and that is comparable to STAR, for example. So that's how we're making sure our students are prepared. Staff members use a campus-wide analysis protocol to analyze the data from those common formative assessments, and those then drive the instruction further. The final topic is improving campus culture. We've implemented the Midland Values Project campus-wide, and from what I hear, I think everybody here has been through that. This has helped move the mindset of adults and students in a positive direction. Mentoring for students is provided from ABEL Team Leadership, Mid-Cities Church, and True Light Church. Our counselors worked very hard with making that communication and that partnership with ABEL this year. They are just literally down the road. So you'll see somebody came over to our campus on a Friday, and they're like, we saw all these kids walking over here. I said, yeah, that's our ABEL Team Leadership. So they come every Friday, and it's during their leadership class. And they come over and they actually mentor younger students. And they read, you'll find them all over the building. They'll be out in the courtyard, they'll be in the cafeteria, all over. So it's a very great site. The adult mentors that we have coming to our campus, we specifically team them up with certain students that just need a little extra support in their life. We encourage them to talk about academics. We encourage them to talk about, making good choices, just being role models and being there for those students to help with behavior and choices. Celebrating each other is a big part of creating a positive campus culture. Once a month, leadership provides opportunities to celebrate our staff. And for an example, we have Wrangler Staff Awards. So, are there any questions regarding any of that information I shared? Before we go into the data. So this is our data from 9-week versus 18-week. Just to kind of help with the conversation earlier, I did go ahead and kind of average out those numbers. So based on the last year 2018 Spring Star results, and we're talking about the Domain 1, it was a 37% or 37. If you look at our 18-week, that averaged to be about a 34.66. So you could round to a 35, which would be right on that mark. Our focus this year for Scarborough is the growth piece as well. We're working on moving those kids. We had a lot of students at the approaches level, as you can see. We're now getting them up to those next 2 levels.
But if their 2018 star was 37, why are they IR?
That will become 70% of their score, and then they take that domain 3 score.
And it dropped it.
And it dropped it because they were lacking in the progress, and remember that's 50% of domain 3.
Right.
So just passing is not the expectation.
Right.
If I'm set with a scale score that says, yes, you made a 73 here, but we
you haven't had
expect you
the
to make it a
growth.
78.
Right.
You didn't have the growth.
And you make a 73, and you've not hit that, or you hit in between there, you've not hit your progress measure. So focusing on just passing the test is not the expectation.
So I'd like to share this little bit of information if I could. Imagine a campus that has 100 students, and they got all 100 students to pass the STAR assessment at approaches. So they all passed.
Okay.
100%. Hallelujah, a campus got every student at the campus to pass STAR. That equates to a 33, which is an F.
When you average the meets and masters.
So you
If you
just
got 0 that it meets.
Right.
zero. They
Right.
all just passed
Right.
at approaches. They met standard, but we didn't get any kids at meets. We didn't get any kids at masters. So that's why it's very, very important that we focus on growth and getting kids, especially those high-level kids. We've got to make sure they maintain at masters and/or jump that threshold from meets to masters. It's important. That's why you hear us talking about not only intervention, it's what we used to talk about years and years ago. We now talk about just as equally enrichment. It's very important to get those kids from just passing at approaches to a meets and masters level.
So when we look at Scarborough specifically, their domain 3 score was an F. So when you took what they, essentially their domain 1 score, and then you put, together with that domain 3,
They weighed
ended
them
up
down.
with an F.
Right.
So what does the data tell us it's trending? Are you coming off IR?
I'm very confident that we will be out of IR this school year. We are doing the right work and we are going down the right path. And we continue to analyze that data, and we do it student by student, and we track from the progress from last school year to this school year.
We're also finalizing an assessment right now.
Right.
That is going to really give us another indicator on possibly making that forecast prediction to see where exactly our
That's
campuses
what
are going to be.
Mr. Davis was talking about earlier,
Yes,
where you
yes.
saw all the, we feel strong, these aren't gonna be an issue, these
Correct.
maybe, we're watching these.
Yes.
Right.
So if all 4 of the IRs are coming off IR, we not hope, but we're wishful, positive that, are there any that are not here tonight that need to be on our radar?
We will know.
That's
we
the
will know
piece
that.
that we'll provide that gives you a sense.
You're not prepared to share that here.
That,
The
not
window, the window closes
Test
on
is this
Friday, so we'll have all the data in this Friday.
So
We'll push
April,
that out.
we'll be ready to bring forward to, here's what our list goes into moving forward. So that'll give us a good glimpse at the secondary level, elementary level as well, where we have, where we're rating schools at that point.
And I'd just like to add, I think a big aha in this new accountability system is, and I think in a campus like Scarborough, typically, sometimes we'll hear conversations where a teacher will say, I'm not worried about Alicia because she's always done okay. Well, in this new accountability system with progress being 50% of domain 3, your top kids can actually hurt you in domains 2 and 3 if we say, I'm not worried about Alicia because she'll be okay. Because you're not growing Alicia, and if you're not growing her, you'll be okay in domain 1, but our top kids will actually hurt us if we don't grow all kids. And I think that's a plus in this new accountability system, is we're really being held accountable to moving every child in the system and not just saying, I'm not worried about, Deanna because she's okay. Okay is not good enough in this accountability
And that's the
system.
reason why we have that win intervention time. So it's not intervention, it's what I need.
Yeah.
So it's based on the student. It's not just intervention, it's this student might need this, but this student might be something completely different that they need. So that's why we've gone to that versus just that intervention piece.
So one of the pieces that we know is we focus on the student. In our data rooms, they didn't show you examples of those, but we visited all 4 schools already as a cabinet, as a team, and they're there daily, weekly. So we've gone in to ensure that you're looking at every single student, that you're measuring what growth looks like, that you understand who are your domain 3 students, how many African American, how many special ed, how many L students do you have in those categories, and what enrichment or intervention is being planned and understood for those students, and what's the dialogue of what teacher performance looks like in regards to that as well. So that's very public in that room. So when you walk in there, you know who's meeting that standard as a student, who's not delivering it as a teacher or exceeding it as a teacher. How do we now build an intervention and enrichment based on those, and how do we now plug in kids by name, by face, by grade level? We targeted very surgical this year in a way to make sure that we are grasping an understanding of what all that looks like, because again, passing the test is no longer the expectation.
I'm sorry to my fellow board members for all my questions tonight.
With that said, I would say that you will hardly ever hear the teaching and learning department talk about getting students to pass a test. You hear us talk about meeting kids where they are and getting them to meet or exceed their progress. Meaning, if Mr. Powell is one of our teachers and he has a student that's a couple of years behind, not on grade level, and Mr. Powell gets this particular student to grow 1.6 years, but this student still didn't pass STAR, I'm still celebrating Mr. Powell, because that's why we got into education, to get kids to grow at a minimum 1 year. But if we can accelerate them to grow more than that, hallelujah. Especially for those that are multiple years behind grade level. But if every teacher can meet that goal, STAR will take care of itself. So that's why you don't hear us talk about, we gotta get kids past STAR. We talk about progress and growth. And making
Test
sure
prep
that
is about passing. Sure, you talk about test prep, it's about just figuring out how to pass the test. So we issue out tests to assess, but our belief is you've got to go where the money is, and you've got to grow kids. Expectation is when you walk through that door, once you leave after 170 days, you should have grown as a learner. And that's what we're driving around teachers, and it's hard. We're driving that around teachers, around leaders. That's the expectation for every student, all 22, 24, 28 in a class. That's the expectation you got to drive, and every student's at different levels. You got to know, you've got to be able to identify that within every student. You have to know your student, and that's why and students have to know where they are. How much money do I have in the bank in regards to my academic learning? And so if you can own your own data and know I'm behind, I need to put some deposits in. If I'm an instructional leader and I know I've got a gap I've got to cover, that's a piece that we're going after, and it's hard on teachers. I mean, it is.
You talk specifically about ethnic breakdowns, but within those subsets are like 504 and
Right.
social economics. I mean, there's other drivers.
There's economically disadvantaged.
In those.
You can be in several categories.
Special ed.
Right.
I can be economically disadvantaged, African American, and special ed.
It's 504s, and especially if it's just a dyslexia and they're getting the test read to them, or
That would be a consideration.
It's not,
That's
504 does
special
not
ed.
necessarily qualify for
It
special
falls
ed.
under special ed, but it's not.
a
It doesn't
subset
fall.
for the test.
Right,
Right.
right.
Then
It's
you
an
have to English
accommodation.
language learners.
We
English
accommodate for
language
that.
learner. That's a good one.
Just trying to show off.
I would also add in closing that, just keep in mind the whole conversation around teaching to a test. I agree with you 100%, but in the world of today, we have to keep in mind, we take assessments all the time. I had to take an assessment to have my superintendent certification. Students are gonna have to take a test to drive on our streets. We've got to make sure that,
Trust needs to be tougher.
I mean, it is a part of our world. You have to take a test, you have to take the bar, you have to, CPA, that sort of thing. We do have to prepare our students to take assessments and to pass assessments and to be successful in that way, because it will be a part of their real world when they get out, among us and working with us and that sort of thing. They even have to pass safety tests if they're going to go into the oil field and that sort of thing. We've got to get them ready for college or career. And unfortunately, assessments are part of it.
I have a little more
Well,
questions.
and the thing is, as much information has been given here tonight, apparently there's 4 schools being focused on, right? But the rest of them should be getting basically the same information in the sense of the strategy of the new assessment, because this is new, right?
They are.
This just came out. I mean, State of Texas just came out with it. and they're trying to, so, you know, that, I understand the frustration in the system when, you know, 2 years ago, we were in this system, now instead of Texas changing, now we're in this system. Now you want me to learn this, and strategize this, you know?
Locked for 5 years now. Now we know how the game is played in essence, and we know our strategy on how to attack what this looks like and really get kids this authentic learning that really begins to bridge and take them well beyond that and then moves them into other realms, whether it be ACT, PSAT, SAT, really gets their ability to really get their core thinking built up. We're headed down that path.
What I truly appreciate about this new accountability system is what we were saying is it's really centered around growth, and it's very difficult to get by when you're not focusing on every child.
Now, can we be confident that the game is not gonna change again?
No, come on.
They
say
Stop it.
5 years.
They told us 5 years.
The agency has locked it for 5 years.
I'm counting.
And the commissioner's been renominated.
He's been renominated, has to get appointed by the Senate still, but we're confident that we at least have 4. And there's legislation out there about accountability and what that could constitute, mean, or remove, but.
We're not even halfway through the session, there's so many bills.
We know that how the game is played is not gonna change, so that alone is a keeper for many districts, to know that the target is not moving in regards to how it's played out. How it's built is a question, but now that we know how the game was played, in essence, how we can we know that target's gonna be still, and we can actually get to our learning now, and not have to press to just get you to pass.
Yeah. Regardless of my jaded view, I hope you'll know how much I appreciate y'all and all y'all do.
Thank you.
and
We
the
appreciate
teachers.
what y'all do also.
So much of what I hear, like the underlying for the growth and the success, is about culture. You know, PLCs, the values program, all of that. And so, which certainly is good for staff morale, which, I mean, those things just compound on each other. How many, and for each of the principals, and I think Lamar answered this, but how many of y'all have pending teacher transfer requests in? Lamar said 0 this year, which is the first in a little while.
And the window's still open.
Right.
But
as of now.
I think it closes this Friday, but as of now, she has 0.
Okay, Travis, do you have any?
I have several.
Okay.
Travis, typically, I would share with you, you can put double digits out there in regards, now you gotta.
And there's a lot of different factors, I understand,
But that's one of the factors of the turn and the churn that happens at a campus. If you can quell that, it can help, but
That's what I was
getting there is you know, it's a challenge.
Sam Collegian?
We have 3.
Okay.
I have 4 to 5, and I'm truly a believer of being a new administrator. I'm coming in with new and different expectations
Sure.
that some people may not want to be a part of.
I think it's also important to share this piece of information, based on the data that's just been shared. How many current vacancies do you have?
7.
Right now, she has 7. How many?
2.
You have 2. How many? You have 8 at Travis. And how many do you have, Lamar?
4.
4 current vacancies this year. So that's a challenge in and of
Sure.
itself
Of
that
course.
they're constantly having to work on.
Well,
Thank y'all.
you would not think that we would come out of a workshop entitled Update on Improvement Required Campuses excited, but we're very excited. We very much appreciate the work that your principals have done. We very much appreciate the work your teachers done. We appreciate the executive directors and everyone else that has supported y'all. We couldn't be more encouraged about the progress, and we're excited to get confirmation of our beliefs this evening that have been expressed and cash in on our bets. So thank y'all very much for
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all. We are adjourned at 7:33 p.m.